My name is Ameha Molla. I'm the director of Hire 15. Rajal, do you want to introduce yourself? I feel like you probably should.
Sure. My name's Rajal Pitroda, and I'm producing Hire 15.
And so our film, it's a deeply personal story about my family. It's centered around my uncle, who was wrongfully imprisoned in Ethiopia during the revolution in the 1970s. And he ends up making his way to the US and running into a prison guard that he encountered in Ethiopia 33 years earlier, and who had tortured him and unfortunately murdered a lot of prisoners. And so it's kind of the story of revealing this secret that had been in the family for a long time, and the implications of that for my family and our community as a whole. So I don't know that when I think of it, I think we're just trying to make a great film, and like things are always processed through everyone's own perspective, and so the things in which they take away from it, or the way in which they take it away, I kind of leave that to them, and it's more about like just what are we trying to communicate. And what we're trying to communicate is just the experience of one family, right? I talked to Rajal about this a lot, that there's like, when you hear something, so during this time period, like 500,000 Ethiopians were killed in a 2-year period by this government. This was a government that my uncle was fighting against. And this led to a huge diaspora around the world from Ethiopia. And this happens over and over again, where, you know, people are being killed and they have to flee. We hear all these numbers about the number of immigrants that were forcefully displaced and those types of things. And it's really easy to kind of dismiss a number. It's just a statistic and it's a number. But the way in which you make people kind of feel what that's like is to break it down to one family and make it a personal story. And so that's really what we're trying to do, just try and show like what one family story looks like, so that when people hear something about like all these people in Afghanistan who are being displaced now, or anywhere else, they can kind of have a reference back to what that might actually be like for that family. And not only that, in the moment, because we hear a lot of these stories in the moment of like families fleeing, but we don't necessarily hear about what happens to that family 30 years later. What's the impact kind of generationally from that? And so that's really what we're trying to capture here and what we're trying to show. I was watching the news on it, and I saw, you know, like a photo of a child like on the laying down, like sleeping on one of the planes that took people out, right? And I just started thinking like, where's that child gonna end up? Like, what's their experience gonna be like? Like, what are they not gonna know about Afghanistan? What are they gonna know? Are they still gonna speak the language? Or their parents gonna talk to them about what happened? You know, like all these things come into my mind because of my own family's story, right? And so it's just like, it's almost like the follow-up to that. I mean, the lens through which this film is being made is through my lens and through that experience of feeling like, you know, I don't really belong. There is no anchor in that way, right? Like, I'm not really a part of Ethiopian culture 100%, because I grew up here and I don't speak the language and I don't understand those nuances. I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood, and so nobody looked like me, and there wasn't much understanding there. And then there were just other challenges that came along with that. And so there was nowhere really that I had kind of an anchor in that way, except with my brother and sister, because they had a similar experience to me. And so that definitely informs my work. And I think it's the experience of a lot of kind of first generation Americans who come here. When I've spoken to them, they have a similar experience. And it's actually like the group of people that I relate the most to are first generation people who are also first generation here, right? We just have very similar experiences, more so than I would with like someone who comes from Ethiopia. Like someone who's grown up here in the US, I feel like we connect more on that level. I was really influenced by Yancey Ford's film, Strong Island. I thought he did a exceptional job, kind of just that film. I really felt it, and it had a lot of kind of the way that he shows how this experience impacted his family, was something that really resonated with me. And also Garrett Bradley's Time, her documentary Time, just the way that film was absolutely incredible. And I think the similarities between ours in that film is that they're really able to show kind of the impact of America's prison industrial complex through one family. Like we hear about Black families being incarcerated, and like we hear about the statistics of the impact that that has on Black families. But in that film, they don't talk about one statistic. They don't say anything along those lines. It's just one family. And it's just showing one family's struggle to live without their father, essentially, and then also to get him out of prison, and the strength of Fox and what she does to get him out and to raise these children without her husband. And so that film is really, it's really inspirational for me, because in the same way that she was able to show the impact, the emotional and human impact of the prison industrial complex, is kind of what we're trying, it's what we're trying to do essentially for, you know, for immigrants who have had to leave or who have been through these situations. Like what's the human impact of that? How do you make people actually feel what that is, and not show them a bunch of statistics or talk about those things, but get them based on emotion and story?
You know, the way I think about it is like the history of our world has been told to us from a single viewpoint, right? And that is a very Western, a very white, a very America-centric viewpoint for those of us here, right? And so it's like, and I think about this across like my work in documentary, it's like, how do we support and uplift the other narratives that have not been given that airtime and have not been shown to us? And so I don't know if I necessarily think of us as like, okay, we're making this film for necessarily an audience in America to educate them about what happened. I think it's more like what Ameha said, it's like a story about a family, and hopefully that will resonate because of what that story is. And so, yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. Like, I think, you know, if the story of the world was told to us from other viewpoints, like we would all know very different things right now. It's just that that hasn't been the case for us, especially here in the US. So, yeah. We basically are in early production on the film. And so we spent the time during COVID really digging into the creative. We were part of the Sundance producing lab with this film. And so they had these like amazing workshops for us, and we really, with their help, kind of spent our time in the last year, like really mapping out and thinking more about story and emotional core and Ameha's role within the film. And so honestly, that's where we spent a lot of our time, which I think was great for kind of where we are now. So we've just raised some production funding, and we'll be doing a shoot with Ameha and his family in Denver in November. And so that's kind of our first big shoot here in the US. And then we've probably got couple more shoots after that. And we are, still in process of raising production funds, which has been like a combination of grants from amazing organizations in the documentary space, as well as donations from family, friends, and others who have like really supported the story. And people can donate to the film off of our page at the Center for Independent Documentary's website. That's kind of the site that we're driving people towards, because it's got a synopsis of the film and also a place that if people are interested in donating, they can.